Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Karen Stokes. Today I'm going to be presenting on the Text Encoding Initiative, also known as TEI. This presentation is for LIS 640 Fall 2022. Let's go ahead and get started on an introduction to TEI. Introduction. Today's presentation is going to cover 6 main aspects of TEI. First, we are going to discuss the definition of TEI. The Text Encoding Initiative is a consortium which develops and maintains standard for representation of text in digital form. Then we are going to discuss examples of TEI, such as basic TEI tags, verse, prose tags, and choice tags. Next, I will give a brief history of TEI, including a timeline of events starting in 1987 to present day. Then we will discuss the TEI guidelines. The TEI guidelines focus on the encoding of text in the humanities and social sciences, such as literary texts like books, poems, manuscripts, speeches, and plays. We are then going to look at the TEI consortium, how it was developed, and its organizational structure. I will then conclude the presentation with TEI projects and practice. This will include well-known projects that encode text using TEI and some practice opportunities provided by TEIbyexample.org. Let's begin by looking at the definition of TEI. The Text Encoding Initiative is a consortium which collectively develops and maintains a standard for the representation of text in digital form. The Text Encoding Initiative was founded in 1987 to develop guidelines for encoding machine-readable text of interest to the humanities and social sciences. TEI Lite, a somewhat smaller version of TEI, includes a subset of the whole TEI tag set selected to include the most needed tags. The Electronic Text Center uses Text Encoding Initiative TEI tag sets and rules, an application of the Extensible Markup Language XML to encode text. TEI tags describe the structural hierarchies, divisions, and characteristics of a given document. Now we need to ask, what does TEI do? TEI tags describe the characteristics of a given text. For example, TEI tags may be used to indicate paragraph and line breaks, pagination and major divisions of text such as volumes, chapters, and selections. In addition, tags may be placed around typographical characteristics such as text that is underlined, italicized, superscripted, and around text that needs special emphasis such as foreign words, misspellings, and proper names. Let's look at some basic TEI tags. These are the basic tags that almost all TEI documents include. You can see an example here on the slide. Now we're going to look at some main examples. The first one is verse. TEI has tags for marking up verse. This example shows a sonnet. It is taken from the French translation of the TEI guidelines. The second example is prose tags. TEI allows text to be marked up syntactically at any level of granularity or mixture of granularities. For example, this paragraph has been marked up into sentences and clauses. You can see that example below. The last TEI example I'd like to share is choice tag. The choice tag is used to represent sections of text that might be encoded or tagged in more than one possible way. In the following example, choice is used twice, once to indicate an original and corrected number, and once to indicate an original and regularized spelling. In the text sample below, you can see how choice tag is used. Now we're going to move on to the history of TEI. The TEI guidelines have been widely used by librarians, museums, publishers, and individual scholars to represent text for online research, teaching, and preservation since 1994. In addition to the guidelines themselves, the consortium, which we'll talk more about in this presentation, provides a variety of resources and training events for learning TEI, information on projects using the TEI, a bibliography of TEI-related publications, and software developed for and adapted to the TEI. Let's go back a bit further and look at a timeline of TEI history. This brings us to 1987. A group of scholars representing fields in humanities, linguistics, and computing convened at the Vassar College to create a set of guidelines known as the Poughkeepsie Principles. These guidelines directed the development of the TEI standard P1. So here is the timeline. 1987. Work started by the Association for Computers and Humanities, the Association for Conceptual Linguistics, and the Association for Literary and Linguistic Computing on what would become the TEI. 1994. TEI P3 was released. It was co-edited by Lou Bernard and Michael Spurberg McQueen. 1999. TEI P3 was updated. Now we're going to move on to 2002. In 2002, TEI P4 was released, moving from SGML to XML. 2007, TEI P5 was released, including integration attributes from W3C, regularization of local pointing attributes, and unification of the PTR and XPTR tags. These changes, with many new additions, make P5 closer to current XML practice. 2011, TEI PV version 2.01 was released with support for genetic editing. 2017, TEI was awarded the Antonio Zampoli Prize for the Alliance of Digital Humanities Organizations. The next part of our presentation is going to focus on the Text Encoding Initiative guidelines. The TEI guidelines for electronic text encoding interchange is used to encode literary texts such as books, poems, manuscripts, speeches, and plays. The guidelines focus on the encoding documents in the humanities and social sciences, particularly on the representation of primary source materials for research and analysis. These guidelines are expressed as a modular extension XML schema, accompanied by detailed documentation and published under an open source license. Work on the guidelines began in 1988. Drafts were released in the early 1990s, and a final first edition was released in 1994. The latest edition is P5, which was released in 2007. The guidelines are maintained and developed by the TEI Consortium through its technical council with the support and participation of the TEI community. The graph below shows each part of the TEI guidelines that you can learn more about from TEIC.org. It focuses on the P5 guidelines released in 2007. Customization of the guidelines reflecting the needs and practices, internalization being translated into various languages, the TEI GitHub and TEI archive, which current and past versions of the guidelines are now available. It provides information on how to get involved, licensing and citation. Lastly, how to teach yourself TEI, which includes a list of resources and materials that can help you learn the guidelines. The next part of this presentation is on the TEI Consortium. What is the TEI Consortium? The TEI Consortium is a nonprofit membership organization composed of academic institutions, research projects, and individual scholars from around the world. The purpose of this organization is to maintain, develop, and promote the TEI. Members contribute financially to the consortium and elect representations to its council and board of directors. To the right of this slide, you can see a snapshot of the TEI Consortium's Twitter page, which provides followers current updates and information. Now we can move on to the development of the TEI Consortium. In 1999, the University of Virginia and the University of Bergen in Norway represented a proposal to the TEI Executive Committee for the creation of an internalized membership organization known as the TEI Consortium. This proposal was accepted by the TEI Committee and two other host institutions with long-standing ties to TEI. Brown University and Oxford University were also added. The goal of establishing the TEI Consortium was to maintain a permanent home for the TEI as a democratically constituted, academically and economically independent, self-sustaining nonprofit organization. To the right of this slide, you can see an image from the article published in 2012 of the TEI Consortium's organizational structure to better understand how it works. TEI projects. Now we're going to look at some of the well-known projects that encode text using TEI. Most projects on this list are associated with one or more universities. This list includes the project name, website, and strengths of each project. Now we're going to look at some more projects from TEIC.org. The following is a list of projects that use the TEI encoding scheme. We're going to take a more in-depth look at the first project on this list, African American Women Writers of the 19th Century. On this project page, I provided a screenshot of the New York Public Library's LibGuide on the African American women writers of the 19th century. This is a digital collection that provides access to the thoughts, perspectives, and creative abilities of Black women as captured by books and pamphlets published prior to 1920. The screenshot to the right provides an alphabetical full list, the catalog record, and a PDF for users to download. The reason I wanted to share this project is because the texts have been encoded in SMGL using TEI Lite. This is a great example of how TEI has been used in a real public library collection. The last section of this presentation is TEI Practice. This is a screenshot from the website TEI by Example. It provides free learning modules to practice your encoding skills. This sample is from Module 6, Primary Sources. The exercise displays a sample postcard that you can learn how to encode the text structures. I really encourage you to check this out. It's a great way to put your TEI into your own practice. This is the conclusion of the presentation of the Text Encoding Initiative, TEI. Once again, my name is Karen Stokes. I want to thank you for listening and for your participation. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.